The rain was coming down hard that night. I remember standing there in the police station, my hands shaking, holding this tiny girl close to my chest. She was crying. I was crying. And the officer across from me just said, "Ma'am, you need to let her go now." But I couldn't. Because 3 hours earlier, I had made her a promise. A promise that would unravel my entire life. A promise that would reveal secrets I never wanted to know. And standing there, with her little fingers clutching my shirt, I realized I had just stepped into something far darker than I ever imagined. Let me go back. Let me tell you how this all started. Because nothing about that day seemed special at first. It was a Tuesday evening in late September. The kind of evening where the air smells like dying leaves and the sky turns purple too early. I had just gotten off work, exhausted, drained, the kind of tired that settles deep in your bones. I worked at a call center back then, taking complaints all day, listening to angry voices, absorbing their frustration like a sponge. It was the kind of job that made me invisible. Clocked in. I clocked out. No one really knew me. No one really cared. I was 28 years old, living alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. No family nearby. No close friends. Just me and my routine. Wake up. Work. Come home. Sleep. Repeat. It sounds lonely when I say it out loud, doesn't it? But honestly, I didn't think about it much. Loneliness was just my normal. It was the air I breathed. That evening, I stood at the bus stop on Maple Street. The same one I stood at every single day. Same cracked bench. Same faded bus schedule behind scratched plastic. I pulled my coat tighter against the wind and stared at my phone, scrolling through nothing, just trying to pass the time. And that's when I heard her voice. "Excuse me." It was small, soft, almost a whisper. I looked up, and there she was. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with tangled brown hair and big, scared eyes. She wore a pink jacket that was too thin for the weather, and she clutched a worn-out teddy bear with one ear missing. "Hi, sweetie," I said, glancing around. "Where's your mom?" Her lips started trembling. "I don't know." My stomach dropped. I looked around the bus stop. No one else was there. Just me and her. "What do you mean you don't know?" I asked gently, kneeling down to her level. "She told me to wait here. But that was a long time ago. And she didn't come back." Her voice cracked. And then the tears started falling. I felt something inside me shift. Some protective instinct I didn't know I had. I reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "It's okay. We're going to find her, okay? What's your name?" "Emma," she whispered. "Emma. That's a beautiful name. I'm Grace. And I'm going to help you, okay?" She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. I looked at my phone. It was getting dark. The temperature was dropping. This little girl had been standing here alone, and I had no idea for how long. My heart was racing. What do I do? Call the police? Wait with her? Take her somewhere warm? "Emma, do you know your mom's phone number?" I asked. She shook her head. "Do you know where you live?" She shook her head again. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I'm not supposed to tell anyone where I live." That's when I knew. This wasn't just a lost child. This was something else. Something wrong. I grew up in a small town about 2 hours from here. My childhood wasn't easy. My father left when I was young. My mother worked 3 jobs just to keep us afloat. I learned early on that the world doesn't always protect the vulnerable. I learned that sometimes you have to protect yourself. And I learned that trust is a luxury not everyone can afford. When I was 9 years old, I got lost at a county fair. I wandered around for what felt like hours, scared, crying, looking for my mom. And when I finally found a security guard, he barely looked at me. He just pointed in a direction and said, "Try over there." No one helped me. No one cared. I eventually found my mom by pure luck. But that feeling of being invisible, of being abandoned, it never left me. Maybe that's why I couldn't just walk away from Emma. Maybe that's why I felt this pull, this need to make sure she was safe. Because I knew what it felt like to be lost and alone. I sat down on the bench and pulled Emma close to me. She was shivering. I took off my coat and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. "Emma, I'm going to call someone who can help us find your mom. Okay?" She looked up at me with those wide, terrified eyes. Please don't leave me. I won't, I said. And I meant it. Called 911. Explained the situation. They said an officer would be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes felt like an eternity. I sat there with Emma, trying to keep her calm, trying to keep myself calm. She told me about her teddy bear. His name was Mr. Buttons. She told me she liked drawing. She told me her favorite color was purple. She told me little pieces of herself, and with each one I felt more connected to her. Grace, she said softly. Yeah, sweetie. Are you going to stay with me? Even when the police come? I looked into her eyes, and I saw myself. That 9-year-old girl at the county fair. Scared. Alone. Invisible. Yes, I said. I promise. And that promise changed everything. The police officer who showed up was a woman in her 40s named Officer Martinez. She was kind, patient, asked Emma gentle questions. But Emma wouldn't talk. She just clung to me, burying her face in my shoulder. Officer Martinez looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. We're going to need to take her to the station, she said. Try to locate her family. File a report. Can I come with her? I asked. Officer Martinez hesitated. You're not family. I know, but she's scared. And I promised her I wouldn't leave. She looked at Emma, then back at me. All right. You can ride with us. And that's how I ended up at the police station that night. Sitting in a cold, fluorescent-lit room, holding a little girl I had just met, feeling like I had somehow become responsible for her entire world. They ran Emma's description through missing persons databases. They searched for any reports of a missing child. Hours passed. Nothing. No one had reported her missing. No frantic mother calling in. No father searching the streets. It was like Emma didn't exist. This doesn't make sense, Officer Martinez said quietly to her partner. A child this young missing for hours and no one's looking for her? I felt a chill run down my spine. They tried asking Emma more questions. Where did she go to school? Did she have any brothers or sisters? What did her house look like? But she just shook her head, tears streaming down her face, saying over and over, I'm not supposed to tell. I'm not supposed to tell. Finally, Officer Martinez pulled me aside. We're going to have to call Child Protective Services. She'll be placed in emergency foster care until we can figure out what's going on. My heart sank. Foster care? But it's protocol. We can't just let her go with a stranger, and we have no family to contact. I looked back at Emma. She was sitting on a chair that was too big for her, clutching Mr. Buttons, looking so small and fragile. And I thought about what would happen to her. Shuffled into a system, placed with strangers, scared and alone all over again. What if I took her? I heard myself say. Officer Martinez looked at me like I just suggested something insane. Excuse me. Just for tonight. Just until you find her family. I have a guest room. I can take care of her. Please. She's been through enough. Ma'am, that's not how this works. You're not a licensed foster parent. You're not. I know. But look at her. She's terrified. And she trusts me. Isn't that worth something? Officer Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. Let me make a call. I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was the system being overwhelmed. Maybe it was Officer Martinez seeing something in me, some genuine desire to help. But somehow, after hours of paperwork and phone calls and background checks, they let me take Emma home. Temporarily. With strict instructions to bring her back the next morning for further investigation. We left the station around midnight. Emma was exhausted, half asleep in my arms. I carried her to my car, buckled her in, and drove through the empty streets toward my apartment. The whole time I kept thinking, what am I doing? I don't know this child. I don't know her story. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her sleeping peacefully for the first time all night, I knew I had made the right choice. I got Emma settled in my guest room. It was small, mostly used for storage, but I cleared off the bed and found some clean sheets. I gave her one of my old t-shirts to sleep in. It was way too big on her, but she didn't seem to mind. I tucked her in and she looked up at me with those big eyes. Grace. Yeah. Thank you for not leaving me. My throat tightened. Of course, sweetie. Get some sleep, okay? She nodded and closed her eyes, still clutching Mr. Buttons. I stood in the doorway for a long time just watching her breathe. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Like maybe I wasn't so invisible after all. But I should have known. Things like this don't have simple endings. The next morning I woke up to find Emma sitting at my kitchen table, drawing on a piece of paper I'd given her. She looked calmer, more relaxed. I made her breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast. She ate slowly, quietly, like she was still processing everything. We need to go back to the police station today, I told her gently. They're going to help find your mom. She didn't say anything, just kept drawing. Emma? Did you hear me? She finally looked up. I don't want to go back. I know, sweetie, but we have to. Don't worry, I'll be with you. She shook her head. You don't understand. I can't go back. What do you mean? And then she said something that made my entire world tilt. My mom told me if anyone ever found me, bad things would happen. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of bad things? Emma's eyes filled with tears. She said they would take me away forever. She said I'd never see her again. She said I had to be invisible. Invisible. That word hit me like a truck. I knelt down beside her. Emma, who told you that? Your mom. She nodded. Why would she say that? Because we're hiding. Hiding from what? She looked at me with an expression far too old for a 6-year-old. From him. And that's when I realized. Emma wasn't lost. She was running. I didn't take Emma back to the police station that morning. I know I should have. I know it was probably illegal. But something in my gut told me to wait. To understand more before I handed her over to a system that might not protect her. Called in sick to work. Sent a text saying I had a family emergency. Then I sat down with Emma and tried to get her to talk. Took hours. She was scared, guarded, trained to keep secrets. But slowly, piece by piece, she started to tell me her story. Her mother's name was Sarah. They had been living in different motels and shelters for the past 6 months. Always moving. Never staying in one place too long. Emma didn't go to school. She didn't have friends. Her whole world was her mother and Mr. Buttons. Why are you moving so much? I asked gently. Because of my dad. Your dad? Emma nodded. He's a bad man. He hurt my mom. He said he would hurt me too if we didn't do what he said. So we ran away. My heart broke. This little girl had been living in fear. Running from violence. Trying to survive. Where's your mom now, Emma? She looked down at her hands. She went to get money. She said she'd come back. But sometimes she doesn't come back for a long time. How long? Days. I felt anger rising in my chest. What kind of mother leaves her child alone for days? But then I thought about Sarah. Running. Scared. Desperate. Maybe she didn't have a choice. Maybe she was trying to protect Emma the only way she knew how. Emma, I need you to tell me the truth. Do you know where your mom might be? She shook her head. She doesn't tell me. She says it's safer if I don't know. I sat back trying to process everything. This was bigger than I thought. This wasn't just a lost child. This was abuse. This was danger. This was a system that had failed this little girl over and over again. And I had a choice to make. Turn her over to the authorities and hope they could protect her. Or try to help her myself. I chose wrong. At least that's what I tell myself now. I decided to look for Sarah. I know it sounds crazy. I know I had no business playing detective. But I couldn't just hand Emma over without knowing more. Without knowing if her mother was in trouble. Without knowing if Emma would be safe. I started with the bus stop. I went back there. Asked people if they'd seen a woman matching Sarah's description. Most people ignored me. A few shook their heads. But one man, an older guy who was always there in the evenings, remembered her. Yeah, I seen her, he said. Nervous type. Always looking over her shoulder. She used to sit here with a little girl. Do you know where she went? He shrugged. She got on the bus sometimes. The one that goes downtown. It wasn't much. But it was something. I took Emma with me downtown. I know I probably shouldn't have. But I couldn't leave her alone. We walked through streets lined with motels and halfway houses. I showed Sarah's picture. A description Emma had helped me piece together, to desk clerks and shop owners. Most people didn't know anything. A few recognized her but couldn't say where she was now. And then we found someone who did. It was a woman working at a small convenience store. When I showed her Sarah's description, her face changed. Oh, her. Yeah, I know her. She's in trouble. My pulse quickened. What kind of trouble? The woman glanced around nervously. Look, I don't want to get involved. But her ex, he's been around here asking questions. Showing her picture. Offering money for information. I felt my blood run cold. What did he look like? Tall. Angry. The kind of guy you don't want to mess with. I looked down at Emma. She was holding my hand so tightly her knuckles were white. Did you tell him anything? I asked. The woman hesitated. No. I don't snitch. But other people might. I thanked her and pulled Emma outside. My mind was racing. Emma's father was looking for them. And if he found Sarah, he would find Emma. Grace. Emma's voice was small. Is he going to find us? I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. No. I won't let that happen. I promise. Another promise. Another weight on my shoulders. But this time I wasn't sure I could keep it. We went back to my apartment. I locked the door. Closed the curtains. Started making a plan. I know this sounds dramatic, but I was scared. Really scared. Not just for Emma. For myself too. Because I was now involved in something dangerous. Something that could hurt both of us. I tried calling the police. Tried explaining the situation to Officer Martinez. But she told me I needed to bring Emma in immediately. That I was interfering with an investigation. That I could be charged with obstruction. You don't understand, I said. Her father is dangerous. If you put her in the system, he might find her. Ma'am, we have protocols for these situations. We can protect her. Can you? Can you really? Because from what I've seen, the system doesn't always protect the people who need it most. There was silence on the other end. Then Officer Martinez said quietly, bring her in tomorrow. I'll make sure she's placed somewhere safe. But you need to do this the right way. I hung up. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to bring her in. Not yet. Not until I found Sarah and understood the full story. That night Emma had a nightmare. I heard her screaming from the other room and ran in. She was thrashing in the bed, tears streaming down her face. Yelling, no, no, please don't. I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. It's okay, I'm here. She sobbed into my chest. He was hurting my mom. He was hurting her and I couldn't stop him. It was just a dream, sweetie. You're safe now. But she's not safe. She's out there and he's going to find her. And that's when I realized. Emma wasn't just worried about herself. She was worried about her mother. This little girl, who had every reason to be angry at Sarah for leaving her, still loved her. Still wanted to protect her. We're going to find her, I said. I promise. Another promise. How many could I make before they all came crashing down? The next few days were a blur. I kept Emma hidden in my apartment. I called in sick to work again. I knew I was risking my job, but I didn't care. This was more important. I kept searching for Sarah. I went to shelters, asked around, followed leads that went nowhere. And then finally I got a break. A woman at a homeless shelter remembered Sarah. Said she had stayed there a few weeks ago. Said she had mentioned working night shifts at a diner on the east side of town. I found the diner. A small rundown place called Rosie's. I went there one evening, leaving Emma with a neighbor I barely knew but had no other choice but to trust. I told the neighbor I'd be back in a few hours. I didn't tell her why. I sat at the counter and waited. And then I saw her. Sarah. Thin, exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. She was serving tables, moving quickly, barely making eye contact with anyone. She looked like someone running on nothing but adrenaline and fear. I waited until her shift ended, followed her outside, and then I called her name. Sarah. She spun around, eyes wide, terrified. Who are you? My name is Grace. I have your daughter. The color drained from her face. What? Where is she? What did you do to her? She's safe. I found her at a bus stop 4 days ago. She was alone. Scared. She's been staying with me. Sarah's legs seemed to give out. She leaned against the wall, tears streaming down her face. Oh God. Oh God, I thought I'd lost her. I thought he found her. He's looking for her. I know. Sarah looked at me with pure terror. You have to give her back. Now. We need to leave. We need to run. Sarah, you can't keep running. This isn't sustainable. Emma needs stability. She needs safety. She needs. You don't know what he's like. Sarah screamed. You don't know what he'll do to us. Then let me help you. Let me. No. You don't understand. No one can help us. No one. And then she ran. Just turned and ran into the night, leaving me standing there shocked and confused. I went back to my apartment, heart pounding, mind racing. What was I supposed to do now? I had found Sarah, but she didn't want help. She just wanted to run. And Emma was still with me, waiting, hoping. When I walked in, Emma looked up at me with those big, hopeful eyes. Did you find her? I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Yeah, I found her. Is she okay? She's scared, but she's okay. Can I see her? I knelt down. Not yet, sweetie. But soon. Emma's face fell, and I felt like the worst person in the world. That night I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. And then I heard a knock on my door. It was past midnight. My heart started racing. I looked through the peephole. It was Sarah. I opened the door. She looked even more exhausted than before, eyes red from crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry for running. I don't know what to do anymore. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room and just stood there trembling. Emma's asleep, I said quietly. Do you want to see her? Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. We walked to the guest room. I opened the door slowly. Emma was curled up in bed, holding Mr. Buttons, sleeping peacefully. Sarah let out a sob. She looked so peaceful. I haven't seen her look like that in so long. We went back to the living room. I made tea. We sat in silence for a long time. Tell me your story, I said finally. All of it. And she did. Sarah told me about David, Emma's father. How he had been charming at first. Loving. How slowly over time he became controlling. Possessive. Violent. How he isolated her from her family and friends. How he threatened to take Emma away if she ever tried to leave. She told me how she finally got the courage to run. How she took Emma in the middle of the night and left everything behind. How they had been living in shelters and motels ever since. How David had connections. People who helped him look for them. How she was always one step ahead but never far enough away. I left her at that bus stop because I had to meet someone who might have been able to help us, Sarah said, voice breaking. Someone who said they could get us fake IDs, new identities, a chance to disappear for real. But it was a trap. It was one of David's guys. I barely got away. And when I went back to the bus stop, Emma was gone. I thought he had found her. I thought I'd lost her forever. My heart ached for this woman. For this mother who had been fighting so hard to protect her daughter. Sarah, you need to go to the police. You need protection. Legal protection. She shook her head. You don't understand. David has friends in the police department. He's connected. I've tried going through the system before. They didn't believe me. They said I was overreacting. They gave him visitation rights. And he used those visits to threaten Emma. To tell her what he would do to me if I didn't come back. I felt sick. That's not legal. There are laws. Laws don't always protect people like me. Laws don't always work. And I knew she was right, because I had seen it. In my own life. In the lives of people I knew. The system wasn't always just. It wasn't always fair. So what are you going to do? I asked. I'm going to take her and run again. It's the only way. For how long? Forever? Sarah, Emma deserves a childhood. She deserves stability. She deserves to be alive, Sarah said fiercely. And that's all I can give her right now. We sat in silence. And I realized something. I realized that this wasn't a story with a clear villain and a clear hero. Sarah wasn't a bad mother. She was a desperate one. Emma wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor. And I wasn't a savior. I was just someone who cared. But caring wasn't enough. Not in this situation. Sarah stayed that night. Slept on my couch. In the morning, Emma woke up and found her mother there. The reunion was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. They held each other and cried. And I stood in the doorway, feeling like an outsider in a story that wasn't mine. But then Emma looked at me, reached out her hand. "Grace, come here." I walked over, and Emma pulled me into the hug. "Thank you for keeping me safe." Sarah looked at me over Emma's head, and for the first time there was gratitude in her eyes instead of fear. "Thank you," she whispered, "for taking care of her, for not giving up." And I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about Emma anymore. This was about all of us. About finding a way forward together. But the universe had other plans. That afternoon there was another knock on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Officer Martinez. And she wasn't alone. My heart sank. Sarah grabbed Emma and pulled her close. "We have to hide." "There's nowhere to hide," I said quietly. "It's over." I opened the door. Officer Martinez looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and concern. "Grace, we need to talk." "I know. Is Emma here?" I nodded. Officer Martinez and her partner came inside. When they saw Sarah, Martinez's expression changed. "You must be the mother." Sarah nodded, holding Emma tighter. "We've been looking for both of you," Martinez said. "We need to take Emma into protective custody while we investigate." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You're not taking her." "Ma'am, we have protocols." "Your protocols don't protect her. Your system doesn't work." Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You're right. The system doesn't always work. But I do. And I'm going to make sure Emma is safe. I promise you that." Sarah looked at her, searching her face for honesty. "I've read the file," Martinez continued. "I've read about David, about the previous reports, about how things were mishandled. And I'm telling you, as a mother myself, I will not let that happen again." There was something in Martinez's voice. Something genuine. Something that made Sarah's grip on Emma loosen just a little. "What happens now?" Sarah asked quietly. "Now we do this the right way. We get a restraining order. We get you connected with a domestic violence advocate. We get Emma enrolled in school under a protected status. We build a case against David that actually sticks. And we make sure you both have the support you need." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "And if he finds us? Then we arrest him. And we make sure he goes away for a long time." It wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't a guarantee. But it was something. It was a chance. Sarah looked down at Emma. "What do you think, baby?" Emma looked up at her mother. Then she looked at me. Then at Officer Martinez. And she said in her small, brave voice, "I'm tired of running." And just like that, the decision was made. The next few weeks were intense. There were court hearings, police reports, interviews. Sarah and Emma were placed in a domestic violence shelter with high security. David was arrested on multiple charges: stalking, harassment, violating previous restraining orders, assault. I testified in court, told my side of the story, explained how I found Emma, how I tried to help. Some people praised me. Others questioned my judgment. But I didn't care. Because Emma was safe. And that's all that mattered. Officer Martinez kept her promise. She personally oversaw the case. Made sure Sarah and Emma had advocates. Made sure David stayed behind bars. Made sure the system for once worked the way it was supposed to. And slowly things started to get better. Sarah got a job. A real one with stable hours and benefits. Emma started going to school. She made friends. She smiled more. She laughed more. She was becoming a kid again. And me? I changed too. I quit my job at the call center. I started volunteering at the domestic violence shelter. I trained to become a crisis counselor. I realized that helping Emma had given me something I didn't know I needed. A purpose. I wasn't invisible anymore. I mattered. My actions mattered. And that feeling was more powerful than anything I'd ever experienced. Emma still visits me sometimes. She brings drawings. She tells me about school. She shows me Mr. Buttons, who now has both ears thanks to Sarah learning how to sew. And every time I see her, I'm reminded of that night at the bus stop. That moment when our lives collided and changed each other forever. Sarah and I became friends. Real friends. She told me once with tears in her eyes, "You saved us. You gave us a chance when no one else would." But I don't think that's true. I think we saved each other. Because before Emma I was just existing. Just going through the motions. Just waiting for life to happen. But that little girl at the bus stop woke something up inside me. She reminded me that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. David went to prison. Not for as long as we wanted, but long enough. And Sarah got full custody. And Emma got therapy. And slowly the wound started to heal. It's been 2 years now. 2 years since that rainy night at the bus stop. And sometimes I still think about how easily I could have walked away. How easily I could have ignored Emma. How easily I could have stayed invisible. But I didn't. And that choice changed everything. Emma is 9 now. She's thriving. She's happy. She still has nightmares sometimes. Still has moments where the fear creeps back in. But she's strong. Stronger than most adults I know. And she's taught me more about courage and resilience than any book or course ever could. Last week she brought me a drawing. It was a picture of the two of us at the bus stop. Me kneeling down beside her. Her holding Mr. Buttons. And at the top in careful wobbly letters she had written, "The day my life changed." I put that drawing on my refrigerator. And every time I look at it, I'm reminded that sometimes the smallest moments have the biggest impact. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can change a life. Or 2 lives. Or 3. I found a lost little girl at a bus stop. And she changed my life more than I changed hers. Because she taught me that we're all a little bit lost sometimes. We're all a little bit scared. We're all looking for someone to see us. To choose us. To promise us that we're not alone. And sometimes all it takes is one person to make that promise. One person to stand up and say, "I see you. I'm here. And I'm not leaving." That's the lesson I learned. That's what Emma gave me. And that's what I carry with me every single day. So I ask you watching this now, listening to this story, what would you do in this situation? If you saw someone lost, someone scared, someone in need, would you walk away? Or would you stop? Would you reach out? Would you be the person who changes everything? Because we all have that power. We all have the ability to make a difference. We just have to choose to use it. Tell me in the comments below. Tell me your story. Tell me about a time when someone changed your life. Or when you changed someone else's. Because these stories matter. These moments matter. And together, we can remind each other that we're not alone. That we're seen. That we're valued. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for caring. Until next time, this is Grace.